So this is the end game of what we're going to create. It's only a really simple game, but what it has is it's got a player here, it's got a couple of enemies which will move up and down the screen, it's got a goal which it needs to get to and walls that it can't get around. So when we play that, just using my arrow keys here to move my player up and down, can't fall off. If he runs into an enemy, he goes back to the start, but if he makes it through, then you notice the text here just changed to game over. And that's it. So let's go to it. So what we're going to create here is a new project, and it's just going to be a simple cube game where the player moves from one position to a goal and there's other cubes moving around that they've got to dodge. A little bit like World's Hardest Game. So I've got a new project. First thing I want to do is I'm going to actually go and create a new project here. Go and browse. We're going to put it on C drive just to make it a bit easier to save. So I've already made a folder called Game. I'm going to select that folder. I don't want any of the character packages or any of the packages. I'm going to start that off. Okay, and here's our new game. Alright, it's untitled. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to make all my folders first of all. So just to make things a little bit neater, I'm going to make some levels. In this case I'll only make one level, but I'll make a folder for levels, create a new folder for materials, and create a new folder for our scripts. And just for later on I'm going to create another one for other objects, and inside that objects, I'm going to talk about this later on, but I'm actually going to create a folder called prefabs. We'll talk about what they are a little bit later on. So on our level, let's make a new scene. So to start with, we're going to, before we do anything, let's make sure we save our scene. So we're going to save our scene, just going to call this level 1. Level 1. Make sure that we can leave it in there or we can save it in our levels. So we'll go and put it into our levels, save, and then we see that's in our levels, so not our assets but in our levels. Now with that selected, what we're going to do is we're going to create our plane. So just to make things easy and simple, I'm just going to grab a plane here. There's my plane. So I've got my little box here. While I'm on it, I'll just grab a bit of a color. So we're going to make a material. So we'll go right click in there, create material, new material. I'm just going to call this the ground. This is going to be the material I'm going to use for my ground. I'm going to create a nice, just a little green, kind of darkish green there, and then I'm going to drag that onto my object. Right, so that's my ground. Now rename that to ground as well. Then I'm going to put my little player in here. So I'm going to create just a simple cube. Again, I'm going to create a material for my cube. So under materials, and I'm just going to call this my player. Alright, my player, I'm going to make my player blue. Let's give this sort of a bit more of a bluish kind of tint, then drag that onto my player. See, alright, I might grab and make that a little bit lighter so we can see that a bit better. There we go. So I've got my player there. Now you'll notice he's down the bottom, so I need to move him up so he's actually on top of here. Because it's in one unit, or they talk in meters, what we're going to do is wider 0.5. That'll keep him nice and exactly on the ground there. Right, what we need to do is we need to set up some cameras so that we can see that. I'm going to set those cameras up because we've watched them in videos before. I'll get you to do that, and then we'll get back to the video. Right, so I've added, not cameras, sorry, but I have moved my camera around a little bit so you can see it on the top and it's facing the right way, and I've just added a directional light to that. So let's get on with the rest of what we needed to do. So with our player, what we first of all want to do is we want to actually add some things so that this thing can move. So with our player here, let's go and rename this cube to player. Right, and then what we want to do is we want to add some script. So first of all, what we're going to do is we're going to import some script because I've gone and done that before. So since I've downloaded those before, and if you have a look in my downloads, I've got 2 scripts here for moving the player and so on. What I'm going to do here is actually I'm going to go into my assets. I'm going to import new assets. I'm going to look in my downloads, grab patrol, and then I'm going to import another one as well, import new assets, and grab the move player, import them in. Now what I want to do is, let's move it straight into my assets here. So I'm going to move that into scripts just to organize things. Okay, and then if I double click on my scripts, there's my move player. So what I need to do is we need to add this to my player. Grab my player, and we've done this quite a bit. We need to make sure that we add a physics rigid body to him. And then what we're going to do is we're going to actually add a script to there. So add a component, scripts, move player. Okay. So if I go to my player again, if I press play and I try to move, you notice nothing really happens. And that's because if I step play, the script has a thing that says move speed, and I need to actually move that a particular speed. So I'm going to put in a 10 just for the moment. Press play. If I move it, it rotates. So it does move left and right and up and down, but I don't want it to rotate. So if I go into this constraints under the rigid body, and I tell it to freeze all of the bottom parts. Now if I move it, it's moving there, but very, very slowly. So we'll go and give it, say, 20. So we're going to give it 20, and there we go, and that moves. Alright, so we've got our player moving. Now what we need to do is we need to actually create some enemies. So I'm going to create a new cube. Actually, we might create some walls. So I'll go and create a cube, and let's move this, reset that, move it so that it's up 0.5, so it's on the top. We'll go into my materials, we'll make a new material. Oops. Sorry, get rid of that. New material for the walls, and we'll just make them black. So if we make them black, and drag that onto the cube, and we'll just grab that cube and move him along a little bit and resize him. So I'm going to make these walls, move them all around and duplicate that. So I'll just sort of thin one here. Right, so I'll keep that as a standard. Right, there we go, and I'll make those barriers and I'll copy that around. Okay, so let's rename that to wall. Okay, and I'm going to make those and then come back and that'll be done. Right, so all the walls have been made, so I've got all those walls there. Just remember too, when you're making them, if you duplicate them, turn them around, try to use degrees and numbers wherever you can to actually get things into exact spots. So turn them at 90 degrees and so on. The other thing is, while I'm here, I'm actually going to make a new... so I've got all my walls. Actually, no, I won't do that. I've got all those anyway. now that I've got all these, I've got my players, my walls and that, what I need to do is make an enemy. So what I'm going to do is create a new cube. I'm going to rename this as enemy. Okay, and then what I'm going to do is in my objects prefabs, I'm going to drag this into there. So what that means is whenever I make new enemies, so I can actually go and create an enemy here, an enemy here, and an enemy here, and then if I go and make a material, let's say, for these enemies, and let's make them, the enemies can be, say, yellow, and then if I drag that over to that enemy, only one of them becomes those colours. Alright, shall undo that though. But if I go into my object here, and I change its scaling, actually not on here, if I go to here and I change its scaling to make this enemy, not there, I want to grab, here we go, let's just make him a bit fatter. Sorry, grab my guy here. If I make him fatter, sorry, not him, if I make him fatter, makes all of them fatter. Alright, and so it's a way of making one enemy and then having all of the rest do the same thing. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to Control Z that change though. So I'm going to click back on him. He's alright. Get rid of these guys here. Got my enemy here. Actually, I'm going to get rid of him too, because I've got one now in my prefab. Bring my prefab over and make sure that reset him like we do with most things. Put him up at 0.5. Control Z. Try and bring that around a little bit so I can sort of see this a little bit better. Okay, grab my guy again now, sorry. Grab my enemy. And move him a bit more to the edge there. Okay, so I'm going to move him around there. So this is my enemy here. And I'm going to call him enemy 1. Enemy 1. And I'm going to grab another guy, drag him on there, and rename him enemy 2. Okay, so with my enemies, and this enemy 2, again I'm going to pop him sort of there. So with my enemies, what I need to do is I need to actually go and make them move. And the way I do that is, first of all, I've got to tell them they're going to use this script here, which is a script called patrol. So I've got to attach this script here. And what this script does is this script goes and tells it to go from certain patrol points. Okay, so I'm going to name things, I'm going to drag them down, I'm going to call them patrol points. Alright, so what I'm going to do first is I'm going to grab my enemy 1 and I'm going to add a script to him and say he needs to have patrol added to him, and see it's gone and set patrol points here and a certain speed that he's moving at. I'm going to do the same to enemy 2. And scripts, patrol, and again he's got there. So let's just work with enemy 1 and we can do the same to enemy 2 later. So now what we need to do is we need to tell it where to go. So we need to tell it what speed to move at. So let's say I'm going to make him move at, let's say 5 to start with. Then what I need to do is say he's going to move. So we need to move him from one position to another. Now it doesn't matter if I want him to start there, he doesn't actually have to be there. I can actually move him even completely off the screen, which is what I'm going to do just to show you that. Then I need to create, actually if I go up here, game objects, right, and create an empty game object. There. I'm going to rename this PP for patrol point 1A. So it's enemy 1, his starting position. I'm going to move that there. Okay. And then I'm going to create another game object. Actually, I'll just duplicate that, rename that PP1B. So that's the position where he's going to move to. And that's there. Right, so 1A, if I move this around here, so we can see that. Actually, we might have to just alter where that is. Let's reset this guy. Put him up at 0.5 and then shift him along. Right. And then we'll get our P, we'll reset him. And again, put him there. Alright. So, now I've got my point A, my point B. I then go to my enemy 1. I tell it with my patrol points, so just move that down and say, well, I've got 2 patrol points. My first patrol point is PP1A, second patrol point PP1B. Now, with that done, if I press play, see now it moves from one point to the next. Okay, and that's the speed that he's moving at. Now I can change him here and say he moves at 20. That's how much he would move at 20. So I can test this while it's in play. That's at 2. So I can move that at 2, let's say, just to test things. Let's press play again. It's moving at 5. My guy moves around. Now, what I need to do with him is I need to then go and tell it to move back to the start. So we're going to do that next. Right, so when I've got my enemy, what I need to do is I need to tell it when this player collides with this enemy. This all comes from this move player here. So if I come down here and have a look, it's an on collision if it collides with anything that is tagged as enemy. So what I have to do is I have to tag enemy 1 and enemy 2 as enemy. So if I go to enemy 1, I don't have an enemy there. So if I go add a tag, alright, I'm going to have one tag for the moment, and it's just going to be enemy. So now that I've done that, I go into enemy, and I tell it it's an enemy. While I'm there, I'll go and tell enemy 2 that it's an enemy as well. Right. Now that's done. If I press play, I can move my guy here, and when he touches him, he moves back to the start. What we can see is we can see that's from here, because that's the part where it says when it opens, when the player opens, spawn, where is its position, and then if it collides, make sure its position goes back to where it was spawned. What we're also going to do here is we can actually set a goal up, so we need to create a goal and put a text in there. So we're going to do that next. So I'll do the same thing for number 2, right? And but it's just exactly the same as 1. So I'll go through that and then I'll come back to you. Alright, so done the same thing for my enemy 2. I duplicated these 2 just to make it a bit quicker. So I've got 2B, 2A. Because they were at other ends, what I then did was with my enemy, I just dragged and shifted them across and actually told it to go from 2B to 2A. And that way now, made sure I gave it a speed. Now when I run, those things go like that. And same thing, when I move him along, he touches him, he goes back to the start. Alright, what I need to do now is I need to make a new goal cube. So what I'm going to do is create a new cube. call it goal. This is going to be my goal. So I'm going to reset him, put him back up at 0.5, drag him along, and I'll give him a material. Well, I'm there actually. I'll give these guys here, these enemies, my yellow material, and I'll just make a new material for my goal. Create material. This is my goal. Goal material, and my goal material, we don't have a red, so let's make it red. Okay, my goal material, stick that over to my goal. Let's resize my goal. And make him pretty thin, very large, and fit him in the end here. Now I can actually move him right to there. Alright. So when you get some time, fiddle around, make sure that that's actually sitting right. And that's where I want it to go. So what I need to do is, now that that's done, I need to go and grab my goal, grab my object here. I need to tell that to be the goal, because in my scripts, if I notice here, when it runs into goal, it's going to change some text. So I need to make sure it's called goal. So I need to go to my goal here, tag it. There's no goal there, so let's add one. Call it goal. And enter that. And now that that's in there, go back to my goal, hit here, and select it from there. So now here's a goal. Next thing though is, when it hits this goal, we want some text. This text is called game over text. We haven't added that yet, so let's do that. Create, and it's just a GUI text. See, it's just here. So I go and grab the move tool for my text. We just shift that text there. Okay, and just sort of shift it in the corner a little bit. Drag him up to there. Alright, and you can play with making it look right, the size and everything here too. I'm going to leave him like this for the moment. I am going to give it a text to start with, and I'm just going to call it, say, CubeGame. Alright, that's going to change soon. And I've got to make sure that I've called it what this one's called. So it's called game over text with the capitals there. So I'm going to camel text. So if I rename that, rename game over text, and then I play. If I move him, and then it says game over, and done. And that's it.